into the ring, it's a fight night. Gonna bring the heat, gonna ignite. Meat Boy MMA, the place to be. Where legends clash, nothing held back, you see. Trevor Pete, Yolo, Sid Maceo, Alexander Great versus the Leech. Who knew? Caught the Crusher, taking names, breaking bones. In the octagon, where warriors have honed. Rematch main event, Milkman and Allen with adrenaline rushing. Hear the crowd calling. In the cage, they'll trade blows, never backing down. Meat Boy MMA, the fight capital town.
What's good, Meat Boys? Yo, let's go. Episode 168. Back at the Apex this week, and some pretty interesting fights last weekend. It was UFC Atlantic City, and I'd be remiss, Meat Boy, if we didn't just start with the elephant in the room. Manal Fierro versus Aaron Blanchfield. Just roll that clip.
Manon as the dog. I mean, that's great. That is absolutely amazing for all the casuals out there, all the field riders, all of the, people that don't know what they're looking at, because Aaron Blanchfield is going to absolutely ragdoll this poor girl, and I can't wait to see this because I see everyone, oh, Fiora's the GOAT, she's the best striker, she's the future best, she makes everyone look terrible. I don't see it, so either I'm the casual or everyone's saying it's delusional, because Blanchfield, I think, is going to submit her or TKO ground and pound literally in the first minute or two. Now, I know what you guys are thinking, but, let's reflect on how today's going, because today's a good day. Last week's gone. Today is today, and this week is nothing but another meatlock.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, you're taped up. It says it on your head. Consider it addressed from my end, Meat Boy, but it was another absolute easy light work win for Manal Fierro, and to many surprise, we'll put it at that. We'll leave it at that, but in better news, and probably in more important news, the Meatlock, fourth in a row. Nate the Train Landwehr. It was our longest dog lock odds we've ever had, right? Plus 180. We cashed on that as a fourth straight Meatlock, 95th overall. What were your thoughts on Nate Landwehr? Easy Meatlock over Jamal Emmers. First round TKO, like we said.
Yeah, that was just such a juicy dog lock. I mean, it was a classic Nate also. He kind of gets tagged up, maybe looked like the worser fighter, but he's got crazy pace, crazy pressure, crazy durability, and that's what we were counting on. So once again, the Meatlock hit. We are on a streak, boys. If you haven't smashed sub, I'm not sure what you're doing.
Yeah, for real, because the Meatlock is absolutely cooking right now, and we're chilling at the grill, anticipating more absolute steaks this week for sure. But before we even start breaking down this week, there was a lot of fun stuff, a lot of interesting stuff last week, right? Beyond the meat event, beyond the Meatlock, which we discussed. But I mean, talk to me about the Andre Petroski hip bone self KO. I don't want to you don't want to throw the word dive out loosely, but what were your thoughts on that round? Because I went back and looked at the scorecards. Petroski won the first round on all three judges' scorecards. Then he loses in like the first minute of the second round. Seemingly ran into Homeboy's hip and knocked himself woozy, and then got finished on the ground. What were your thoughts on that Petroski finish?
Yeah, that was one of those truly unfortunate events of where it's like, was that a dive, or was that just an oopsie doopsie, hit my chin on your hip ski? I don't know. Anything's possible in this game. This is why we love MMA. It is a whirlwind. It is YOLO. And sometimes Andre Petroski should be investigated. I'll put it like that. But what a bum. I've never seen anybody knock themselves out. Very fascinating to see. So truly unfortunate for that one. I thought Andre would win, which he did win that first round, but then he decided to somehow knocked himself out. A little bizarre. He should be investigated.
Yeah, 100%. It was something that you don't really see too often. You'd wonder if it was just like you said, the oopsie doopsie ran into the hipsy for sure. Because Petroski had that one, he was fighting well, and then suddenly he was out cold. So interesting stuff there. Still a young guy, still training with Sean Brady, with your boy Body Bags, with Nur Sultan. A lot of tough guys. You got to imagine Petroski maybe can come back, but I don't know, Meat Boy. Not looking great for Andre, but nonetheless, another guy who you could say it wasn't really looking great for. Even though he did get the win, Chidi and Joe Kwani won that close split decision over Reese McKee. I actually liked how Chidi fought, at least in that third round. I thought that he clearly won that round and really created some separation in what was a pretty close fight and a difficult one to score, but it wasn't a great look having to emerge with just a split decision over Reese McKee. What were your thoughts on Chidi versus Reese?
Yeah, that was not as an exciting fight as I thought it was going to be. I thought Chitty was going to knock him out. I thought it was going to be crazy, absolute slugfest like Chitty versus RoboCop. Absolute opposite, absolute snoozer. Chitty did what he had to do. It was kind of a close fight, which makes me sus on Chitty because I had Chitty at a way higher value as a fighter in his IQ. McKee is literally the boon stonks of that division. They're bringing him in because there's no one else, and sure, kid, we'll give you a little 5-5 payday and get slept or lose 3 times. I mean, I don't know if he'll ever get a win in the UFC, but he almost got his first one. Like, that was a close fight, right?
It was very close and it was a split decision. So a judge gave that fight to Reese McKee. But nonetheless, if he is the next Boonstonk, then we're gonna have to keep an eye on who Reese McKee is paired up against next. Because one thing about Boonstonk is he has that one amazing win over Michelle Pajeda. So Reese McKee yet to have that win, but we can see him maybe getting one, I guess. So keep an eye on Reese McKee. He's probably gonna be another plus 400 dog against whoever he fights next. But if he's the next Boonstonk, he's due for something great. But nonetheless, Meat Boy, a couple other interesting fights. Talk to me about the eye poke TKOs. There was two of them, right? Nursultan Ruziboev seemingly TKOs 21 Savage with an eye poke. Chris Weidman, same thing, seemingly eye pokes Handsome Squidward, and two eye poke TKOs. I don't know if you've ever seen anything like that. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, never seen anything like that. This fight card had some very bizarro sus stuff. You know, 21 Savage getting eye poked 60 times and then eventually got KO'd by the double poke. And then the next fight, Chris Weidman goes, "Hey, that's actually a pretty good move, Ruzibov. I'm gonna do the same thing." And he did the ultimate poke, poke, poke. Seems that they overturned it to a decision. But hey, to be fair, Chris Weidman looked phenomenal. He looked the best he's ever done. I think this is what he needed to get his confidence up. I feel bad that he lost the KO, but when you watch the slow-mo, that left hook he threw after the triple claw poke to the eye, he threw that left hook. Maybe it was right. I think it was left hook though, if I recall correctly, and it absolutely just barely hit him, and it totally missed. Chris thought he dropped him with it, but it was actually Bruno's eyes got pushed to the back of his skull, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm blind," and so that's why he fell. Truly unfortunate to give that false hope that Chris still has coconut bombs. Most likely, probably get knocked out next fight from false confidence. Truly unfortunate, but Chris did look good. Besides that.
Yeah, it was interesting stuff, right? Because Chris Weidman did look good. He's really dominated those first two rounds, and the third round I thought was still going in his way. He was well on his way to earning a decision, which technically he did end up emerging with in a strange fashion, right? He wins by TKO, then ultimately they went to the judges, and because the third round started, then it becomes a decision. Very strange outcome, but if you had the Chris Weidman by decision, then you definitely lucked out on that one. And conversely, if you had for some reason had Chris Weidman by TKO, that's what we call a bad beat. But very interesting outcome for sure in that one, and I thought he looked good. I think a fight against Bo Nickel would be very interesting if Bo Nickel is able to get through Homeboy at UFC 300. Shout out Diesel for that idea, because does that not make perfect sense? I mean, Bo Nickel versus Chris Weidman, old school wrestler versus new school wrestler. I think that'd be a pretty fun setup. And Chris Weidman, obviously the former champ, so you could headline that for a Bo Nickel card for sure. But last thing, Meatball, before we jump into this week's Buckley over Luque. He really smoked him. Buckley got the second round finish. My only question to you is Vicente Luque done?
Yeah, Vicente BKFC Luque, I think that's his next, chapter in his life. He's still pretty young, but man, it's like Vicente Luque kind of peaked right after he beat, Bilal Muhammad. I feel like that was the peak of his moment, and he hasn't really got better. He still has some wins after that, looks pretty good. but it's been getting scrappier, sloppier, and brawlier ever since. And all these younger fighters, they're just getting faster, stronger, better, and they're leveling up. Like Buckley is clearly leveling up, because he was definitely a bum, fights ago. Still is a bum, but he's a better bum than Luque. Truly unfortunate. I'm a big fan of Luque, so I hate seeing that. But I kind of called it too. I was like, oh, I'm rooting for Luque, but I feel like he might lose to Buckley because of XYZ. And sure enough, that's what happened. I hate to see him get KO'd, but it might be time to just start fighting the worst of the worst for the lowest amount of money or retire, because I worry for Vicente's health.
Yeah, you wonder what Vicente versus a lot of these top guys currently would look like. I mean, I think Buckley was a good enough test to really highlight where Luque is currently, and I don't see him beating those top 10 guys anymore. And it really sucks because obviously he had some unfortunate circumstances, right? I mean, he had the brain hemorrhaging, like some serious injuries that Luque has had to battle back from. So for him to even still be around, still fighting hard, very impressive stuff, but I don't know, it seems like it's going in the wrong direction. So whether he becomes like the next Neil Magny gatekeeper type or, like you said, heads over to BKFC, I mean, I think a war with Mike Perry would be fun to watch, but maybe also not fun to watch because Mike Perry really might beat up Vicente Luque out there. So I don't know. You wonder what's next for Luque. We're obviously rooting for him. We're both fans of it for sure. But yeah, we both called Buckley to get that one done. He did pretty easy, light work, and should have a ranking next to his name now. So Joaquin is on his way up, and a lot of guys for episode 168, Meat Boy back at the Apex, are also trying to creep on up into the rankings as well. We're going from the milk crates to the bare knuckles on this one. So are you ready to roll?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Once again, we got another absolute meat lock.
Yeah, fifth in a row. Swap us over, Meat Boy. Brendan Allen, the Revenge Tour, taking on the Milkman. It's the meat event. It's the meat lock. We see Brendan Allen coming back in this one and finding a way to this time get the better of Chris Curtis. Because well, the first time they fought, he clearly did not get the better. He got finished. In fact, it was late December 2021. Got finished. It was the performance of the night for Chris Curtis, and probably, in my opinion, his most impressive moment. And Chris Curtis, the Milkman, has had plenty of impressive moments throughout his tenure, but that win over Brendan Allen was, to me, at the pinnacle for sure. But in this one, it's the Revenge Tour. Brendan Allen has gone on a beautiful six-fight win streak since that setback to Chris Curtis in 2021, and he seemingly just seems like a new, reborn, rebirthed fighter. I mean, these finishes, he keeps getting rear naked choke finishes over everyone he fights, and it's pretty decent guys too. Andre Muniz, he absolutely broke. Bruno Silva Blindado broke. Paul Craig just got submitted in the third round. I mean, he's been doing some really good stuff and is elevating the stand-up game to go with the gnarly submission game we always knew that he had. So we think he's a meatloaf against the Milkman in this one. Obviously, Chris Curtis is not going to want to hear that, but Chris Curtis basically 5-3 in the UFC, 31 wins, a lot of experience, a lot of talent, and is a plus 170 dog with a win already over our boys. So why to you, Meat Boy? Why should the Meat Boys be hammering Brendan Allen as a meat lock this week?
Yeah, this is another meat lock. I mean, Brendan Allen is absolutely on a tear since he lost to Chris Curtis. Has not lost since. He's going for the redemption era. This is, the revenge arc for Brendan Allen's story. This is such a fun fight, a great one. Can't wait to see him get it back. I don't know how Chris Curtis won last time, but I think Chris Curtis is going to get absolutely mauled and ragdolled. By default, everyone's going to probably say he gets submitted, but Chris Curtis surprised has really great takedown defense. I got to give the milkman where, the milk mildew is due, and it's due with Chris Curtis' defense on takedowns. With that being said, I think Brendan Allen is going to take him down and probably submit him. The last 6 fights, he submitted 5 of 6. I don't see any other reason why he wouldn't submit again. The only other option is probably just a beat down for 3 rounds and maybe decision. I don't see him KOing Chris Curtis. If he KOs Chris Curtis, holy smokes, that would just be insane. Most likely goes decision, but I think if there is a finish, it's most likely sub by Brendan Allen.
Yeah, good stuff, and it's 5 rounds too, so it's going to be very interesting to see what both these guys look like in rounds 4 and 5 because these aren't guys that are used to going. I don't think they've ever been slated for 5, so very curious to see what this looks like if it goes fourth or fifth round. How will that sort of play out? I think that this is going to be one of those statement performances for Brendan Allen where he's going 15 minutes hard, and if he needs to, he's going 25 as well. And I'm hopeful that this is peak Brendan Allen. He's going to find ways to grind on Chris Curtis, make it ugly, mix things up. You said that you might see a Brendan Allen submission. Chris Curtis has only been submitted one time, and we know about that lethal takedown defense of his. What would be the pathway for Brendan Allen getting that way? And is that your best idea for a prop? I mean, obviously it's just the meatlock straight up, but is that your best idea for the prop as sub, or would you think that ultimately decision or KO would be more likely than the sub?
I think it's got to be that decision or submission. If he gets a KO, that's just really gonna blow my mind. I know that Brendan Allen has been really leveling up, looking crisp on the feet. But with that being said, he still has not got a KO finish since 2020. So it's been 4 years. Maybe he's due for one, and this could be it. But I don't know. Chris Curtis has got a tough chin.
Yeah, and Brendan Allen also is one of those guys too, where he will hurt dudes with his hands, and then immediately once he senses an opportunity, he's not afraid to lock up that submission, right? I feel like some guys are always really are gung ho going for that TKO, but Brendan Allen will smell blood, sink in the jiu-jitsu, and it's over. So I think that maybe contributes to why he doesn't have all those TKOs on his record, but I think that could be in play for this one, Meat Boy. I see this really being a dominant affair for Brendan Allen. If it needs to go 5 rounds, I think it can. So ultimately, we're throwing down easy 205. It's going to net 100, get us our 96th meat lock. Should be the fifth in a row. Back to a meat lock favorite. We've been absolutely killing it with these meat lock dogs. So we'll see if just an easy revenge tour meat event minus 205 favorite cashes for us in this meat lock. But should be easy light work. Brendan Allen, any last thoughts?
No, another lock nonetheless.
Yeah, another lock nonetheless. Move us over, Meat Boy. It's an interesting fight. Germaine Duraname is taking on Norma Dumont, and we put this one on the docket this week because essentially the featherweight women's division has closed, right? And who were two, I guess, notable staples of that 145 division? The former champ Germaine Duraname and Norma Dumont, who was on a nice 3-fight win streak before Nunes essentially forced them to shut up the division. So both these women are now forced to come back down to bantamweight, and we were discussing earlier, this could be a number one contender fight. I mean, this division seems like it has a lot of fluidity. I mean, Penjington City is the champ, and so it seems like anyone is ripe for the taking if they can just quickly make a name for themselves. And if anyone is trying to do it prior to UFC 300 when Kayla Harrison takes on Holly Holm, then these women would have the opportunity right now. But we'll see. It's GDR taking on Norma Dumont, and this one I want to get your perspective on because technically Germaine Duraname has pretty solid UFC tenure. I mean, if you really break it down, she's won 7 of her last 8 fights, but we haven't seen her in a long time, right? 2020 was the last time we saw her, and it was performance of the night finish over Juliana Pena, who then became the champ. So when we saw Duraname last, she was picking up beautiful wins and earning bonuses, but that was almost 4 years ago. So do you think Germaine Duraname comes back in here, smokes Norma Dumont as a plus 160 dog, or at minus 192 is Norma going to get her 4th in a row at bantamweight?
One thing just to say that will forever bother me, and the biggest factual thing that MMA math does not exist because Jermaine Iron Lady somehow lost to Amanda Nunes very badly. Next fight, she chokes out Juliana Pena, which Juliana Pena's next fight is choking out Sarah McMahon, crazy, and then choking out Amanda Nunes? Like, what is that? If it just no logic, doesn't matter. YOLO, bet on the dog always. That's all that says to me. Back to what you said, though. Yeah, this is a fun fight. Norma Dumont is absolutely going to ragdoll this girl. Norma Dumont is a way bigger, better Juliana Pena, in my opinion. The only thing I do worry about Norma is if she can't get it to the ground. She should have way more size, but Jermaine is a next level kickboxer. I will say she has the crispiest hands. I mean, she absolutely deleted Aspen Ladd, sent her over to Bumville. Truly unfortunate to see her go to PFL and then become another bum over there. But Jermaine definitely has a chance. But I'm leaning Norma with her size, and uh, and I think she's gonna be able to get her down.
Yeah, 69% Tapology is rolling with Dumont as well. 31% rolling with the Iron Lady in her return, but it's basically all beige on both sides. So Norma by decision and or Durandamy by decision. There's a little bit, maybe 15% of brown for the TKO Durandamy, which would be kind of interesting. I mean, if you remember that fight, maybe it was I think it was 2019. It was Durandamy versus Aspen Ladd, who you mentioned. I think it was a meat event, and Aspen Ladd, they're building her up right, and then she gets absolutely slept by Jermaine Durandamy first 5 seconds. So I think that would be an interesting outcome if after 3 years she just still is that lethal of a kickboxer and just flattens Dumont with before the fight even gets going. That could be a pathway for her, but if she's unable to pull off that early YOLO, then I do see Norma Dumont probably grinding out a typical Norma Dumont decision in this one. So I'm going to roll with the Tapology backers. 69% again, all beige. Rolling with the Dumont decision. I think that's probably fair, but at minus 200, there's nothing there. I think the only thing to inspect is the under point 0.5 Durandame by KO, because if you're getting plus 1500 on that, could be worth a nominal dink for sure. Nothing crazy, but Dumont by decision is the pick for me. Same for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is decision. I think dominant by Dumont, and I think unanimous.
Dominant for Dumont for sure. Kick us over to the next one, Meat Boy. It's the Crusher, my boy Court McGee, the absolute OG, taking on Alex Morono, the Great White, who is a low-key, very tough UFC fighter. This is a dude who always gets better and better. And while yes, he's lost 2 of his last 3, it was against Ponzinibbio in a fight that he was basically winning, and then just happened to get finished in the 3rd round. And then it was against the aforementioned Joaquin Buckley, who is now a ranked fighter who just smoked Vicente Luque. So not a lot of bad stuff from Morono, and the wins are pretty nice. I mean, smoked Semi the Jedi, easy light work. Tim Means got finished by him. David Zawada, he broke. Donald Cerrone, I mean, some pretty solid recent wins for the Great White, and he's a minus 298, so almost a 3-1 favorite in this one against Court the Crusher McGee, who is another longtime OG. When we were doing some tape study, I noticed that Court McGee has 10 UFC wins. Alex Morono has 12 UFC wins. So I was surprised to hear that because Court McGee, I've been thinking, has been in the UFC way longer, I suppose. But technically, the Great White has way more wins. So this is an interesting one. I'm a fan of both these guys. I love Court McGee. That dude always brings it. But we can't ignore the fact that he's been finished in the first round of 2 straight contests. Matt Brown finished him. Jeremiah Wells finished him. That's not great. And his recent wins are against Ramiz Brahimaj and Claudio Silva, but those are aging veterans, and you just wonder what Court McGee is going to look like in this one against a very, very tough and younger Morono. So, what are your thoughts on this scrap, Great White versus the Crusher?
Yeah, no, this is a fun fight. This is a fight of OGs, and it is pretty crazy to see that Alex the Great has more wins, even though Court McGee had a 6-year head start,
Mhm.
clearly not as active as the Great White. Um, but yeah, no, I think this is gonna be a close fight, closer than what the odds are saying. But I gotta go with the youth. I mean, Alex Morono's 33. He's been looking pretty okay, I would say. Not good enough to beat Buckley, but good enough to beat Tim Means, and that is a dirty bird right there. So I think Alex Morono is gonna win. Court McGee might have a little success, but being 39, the Crusher is absolutely getting crushed. Jeremiah Wells KO, Matt Brown KO, Alex Moreno KO. I think so. Most likely, Alex Moreno absolutely KOs him with an absolute shark bomb from those fists.
Yeah, it could be. And Tapology is pretty much leaning that way, Meatboy. 94%, it's overwhelming majority rolling with the Great White. They're swimming with sharks, and only 6% is going with the Crusher. And of the 94%, there is a slight majority rolling with that Shark TKO. So perhaps you're onto something there. I think that you are, but if you notice Tapology, only like 9% is rolling with the Great White by sub. I think that that could be interesting. So similar to how we were talking about earlier, Brendan Allen, rocks dudes and subs dudes. I can see Morono with a club and sub opportunity in this one because Morono's quick with the hands and he's also a lethal black belt. And we've seen Court McGee get finished before by submission. Never mind, he's never been submitted, but nonetheless, he might get submitted in this one. I'm taking that one. I think that that's interesting, Meat Boy. I'm taking the Great White by submission in this one, even though it defies all logic. But club and sub opportunity I can see happening in this one. Any last thoughts on Court McGee versus Alex Morono?
No, it's a banger. It's an OG fight. Throw in the comments. You taking a shark or you taking a crusher? But next
Shark
fight
of the
is gonna be a
Crusher
great
first. Try to
one.
move it over me, boy. Get those guys out of here. Trevor Peek taking on Charlie Campbell in this one, and this one's interesting. This is truly a battle of the YOLOs because both these guys have similar style. They love to get punched. They love to punch back. Two dogs who bite down on mouthpieces and are unafraid to throw down, meet in the middle. Ricardo Lamos versus Max Holloway style. So Trevor Peek is a plus 160 dog in this one. He's 2-1 in the UFC, coming in off a recent decision win, which I thought was encouraging because we've seen Trevor Peek really gas late in fights, and when he's winning with those YOLO meat bombs early and often, that's great. But after that first round, things get a little bit sketchy. So for him to get a decision win over Muhammad Yahya was encouraging in my opinion. And the fight before that, he fought against my boy Chepe Mariscal, who I think is a better fighter than a lot of people give credit for, and who's also fighting on this card later on. But that's his only UFC loss, and he's taking on Charlie Campbell, who is 1-0 in the UFC, and excuse me, minus 192 favorite, 8-2 overall. But his one win in the UFC was against Alex Reyes, and who's Alex Reyes? It's Dominic Reyes' older brother, who lost his UFC debut, got absolutely smoked 6 years ago against Mike Perry, and then for some reason returned in 2023, 6 years later, to face Charlie Campbell, who he then got absolutely smoked by in 3 minutes. So it's 1-0, it's undefeated for Charlie Campbell, but the context is interesting for sure. So in this one, two YOLO meat sling and meat bombers. You taking Trevor Peek as a YOLO dog or Charlie Campbell at minus 192?
Yeah, this is a fun fight. Like you said, they're basically the same person, except one little thing. Charlie Campbell has like 10 inches on this man. Trevor Peek is about 5'2", 155 pounds, while Charlie Campbell is around 6 foot, 155. Charlie, he's 28 years young. He's looking good. And Trevor's 29. So will the grizzled vet of one more year of experience of life outwit the cannibal? I don't know. The cannibal, he's still rocking the mask I see on Tap Ball on Sherdog, and that's cool and all. But I don't know. I think he's gonna get snuffed because the same thing happened to Charlie when he fought Chris Duncan. He snuffed Chris Duncan, and then you know what happened? Chris Duncan threw a meat bomb of doom and sent him and his mask back home. So I think honestly Trevor Peek is going to do the same thing. Trevor's probably going to get dropped, probably going to be beaten in every aspect of this fight, but Trevor's heart is unmatchable, and I think that meat boy is going to absolutely throw a Alabama haymaker for the win. It's going to be a nice little upset, a hilarious fight. This is honestly a fight nobody's going to want to miss. These guys, someone's getting slept, and I got to imagine it's Charlie. He's crumbled before, he'll crumble again, and nobody's ever knocked out Trevor Peek. He's one of the toughest dudes, so if Trevor does lose, it will be by decision, but I think there's going to be a KO.
Yeah, so potentially an Alabama meat bomb coming straight from Chattanooga for sure, and the 29-year-old older veteran, grizzled veteran fighter against the 28-year-old cannibal, and then the height for sure, 6 foot is the cannibal. Trevor Peek, 5'9", I'm not quite 5'2", but probably somewhere in between if we're being fair. But just to be clear, Meatball, are you saying Trevor Peek is going to win by KO, or are you saying the cannibal is going to win by KO?
Trevor Peek is going to get knocked out, but not fully knocked out, and then officially knock out Charlie Campbell. So Trevor Peek will win by KO after almost getting KO'd.
Got you. Okay, thank you for the clarity. Understood 100%. Trevor Peek is going to be clinging to some sort of consciousness, but will somehow, some way emerge with the KO. I don't think you're crazy for saying that because every time we've seen Trevor Peek seemingly fight, it's looked like that. And Tapology is rolling with that same exact story, me boy. Despite him being a near 2-1 dog, 66% is rolling with Trevor Peek, and most of it's Brown for the KO, whereas 34% is rolling with Campbell, and probably 78% of it is Brown for the KO there. So to another one of your earlier points, this fight is unlikely to go the distance. I'd be interested to see if this thing even hits over a round and a half because I could see this being over early and often, but in this one, I think the size is going to be crucial, Meat Boy. And for that reason, for your point, I think Charlie Campbell is not only going to fake knock out Trevor Peek, but maybe after a peak rally, I still think it's going to end up being, no matter what, in the end, a real KO victory for Charlie Campbell. So while yes, Trevor Peek is going to have some sick moment of rebound, in the end, he's going to be sleeping. So I'm taking Charlie Campbell, the cannibal, to eat another victim in this one. Trevor Peek ultimately gets slept probably in the first round, but I hope this thing makes it to the second because that's when this could really get very sloppy, very funny, and could be an interesting outcome for sure. So I'm taking Campbell by KO. You have Peek by KO. Anything else?
No, fun fight, absolute slobber knocker, meat bopper. Smash subscribe if you have not, and make sure you like the video, it helps us out. And we got a few more to break down.
Yeah, two more for sure. And Ignacio Bahamondes, a former Meatlock, in fact, is who we're taking next in this contest against Christos Giagos. And although the odds kind of are very interesting, I'm curious to get your perspective because Ignacio Bahamondes, 4-2 in the UFC, is a minus 345 favorite in this one. Even though the last time we saw him, he got absolutely smoked by Ludovic Klein. And that was pretty discouraging because we loved Ignacio's win streak. He had won 3 in a row. He had just picked up that win over Trey Ogden, but Ludovic really took it to him and got that decision pretty easy light work. So not great, but the odds makers are still pretty bullish on him, even against an OG veteran like Christos Giagos, who is 20-11, is a plus 275 dog. And Christos Giagos is a guy who, yes, he has a lot of losses, but if you really inspect him, I mean, there's some pretty tough losses. I mean, these are his last 5. Charles Oliveira, Drakkar Klose, who's a guy who, when on, can beat some dudes. Armin Sarukian, he got finished. Thiago Moises still killing it. And then most recently, Daniel Zellhuber, who looked absolutely sick in his fight in Mexico City. So Christos Giagos, all of his losses recently, pretty tough dudes. And his wins, not against the greatest competition, but still decent. Ricky Glenn, Sean Soriano, not great. Demir Hadzvik, not great. Not a lot of great wins, but the losses stand out to me as always very good guys. So here's my question: is Ignacio Bahamondes in that same conversation as Armin Sarukian, Thiago Moises, Daniel Zellhuber, Charles Oliveira? Is Ignacio that good and warranting a minus 345 spot from Vegas?
You know, if I had to say, with my opinion, absolutely not. I mean, I don't think he's that good. I think a minus 150, max minus 200 would be fair in my opinion, but this could be juicy for the dog riders. Even though I do think Baja Mendes does get it done, but this one I really am not too confident. With those kind of odds, minus 345, I do not like. So take that for what it is. But this should be a good fight. Should be a solid fight for the fans.
Yeah, it should be a solid fight for the fans for sure. I'm personally excited for it because I like to watch both these guys fight. I think that Baja Mondes is a very tough, rangy striker who, when on, that dude can really mix it up well and has some pretty dynamic striking for sure. And then Christos Giagos is just a dude who is always tough, always game, always down to throw down and scrap. And he's actually been looking pretty good lately. I mean, Christos Giagos has won, some of his recent fights and some pretty good stuff for him overall, in my opinion. But are you taking Ignacio in this one? And I mean, we don't like the odds, obviously, but is your pick going to be the Spartan? Are you meeting the Spartans, or is Ignacio going to find a way to get this done ultimately?
You know, I hope Meet the Spartans gets it done. That is one of the best movies if you've ever seen it. Smash subscribe if you've seen Meet the Spartans, and if you haven't, smash subscribe and go watch it. But anyways, I think the Spartan might get snuffed by Baja Mendes. The reach, the size, he's got a lot of KOs, a few decisions. It's either going to be a decision or KO. I doubt a sub. Um, but yeah, I don't know. The Spartan's a Spartan, so he'll probably survive. This will be a good fight, though. Most likely a decision snooze fest. But this is the future of the division. These two guys are going to go after it, and I think Baja Mendes is going to barely pull through. Him being 26, he should have the upper hand with speed and cardio.
Yeah, speed and cardio for sure. 8 years younger, 5 inch height advantage, and a 4 inch reach advantage. So a lot of good stuff for Ignacio. We know he's gonna be faster and probably crispier, but is he tougher? Is what I want to know. Ultimately, I'm taking La Hula. Ignacio Bahamondes gets this done. I like it by decision. I think this thing does go the distance, and it's a good rebound opportunity for Ignacio. But at minus 345, I think that that's a little bit too risky because Yagos is a tough dude, and sometimes he can win fights that on paper he's not supposed to. So be careful on that one. I'm taking Ignacio by decision. Your final call is Ignacio by what?
By decision.
Ignacio decision for both of us. Good stuff, Meat Boy. Let's close this thing out. Last one over. Swap us through. If you're still around, we appreciate it, Meat Boys. Comment down below anything that has stood out to you. If we're straight up casuals or if we're offering any good insights. But last one here. Alexander the Great Hernandez is taking on our boy Damon the Leech Jackson, the second Leech, maybe even the first Leech at this point, because Damon the Leech Jackson is an absolute stud, but he has lost two straight. Most recently, he lost that decision to Billy Q and got finished by Dan Ige. Easy light work before that, but he did rifle off a nice four-fight win streak. The dude is 5-3 in the UFC. He's the former LFA champ. Is a plus 164 dog and is a guy who has cashed as a dog before, but he's taken on Alexander Hernandez, who we know the story, right? He had the amazing debut, killed everybody's parlays. We were there live, finished Benil Dariush in 42 seconds on 10-day notice, and from there it's just been very up and down, right? Hit or miss. He wins a couple, he loses a couple. To me, it seemed like it started to go downhill when he dropped the day drinking Don riding up on a saddle with a pop cap line. I feel like everything sort of went downhill at that point for Alexander Hernandez, but he's still a minus 198 favorite in this one, and he's lost three of his last four. His only win was against Jim Miller. So, what are your thoughts on this one? Do you like Hernandez as a minus 200 basically favorite, or is Damon the Leech Jackson going to cash as a dog like he's done before?
Yeah, I like Damon in this one. Fan also, he's always cashing when he's a dog. People always underestimate him, and he's an absolute savage. Maybe he's had a little ups and downs, but I think he's back on the upward trajectory after this weekend.
Yeah, he's had his ups and downs for sure. My favorite up, you can say, of his was that performance of the night finish against Pat Sabatini, right? He was dealing with the personal grief within his own family, comes out just motivated, locked in, absolutely dialed, and picks up that first round finish performance of the night. Emotion poured out of him. That was some amazing stuff from Pat against Pat Sabatini for sure, and I hope that he's able to rebound in this one. I don't want to see our boy the Leech pick up a third straight L because that to me spells danger, especially in this always tough division. So it's going to be interesting in this one, and it's interesting to see Hernandez back down at 145. He picked up that one win against Jim Miller at lightweight, and then Bales goes back to 45, loses to Algio, is fighting again at 45. So just very interesting stuff from Hernandez and the trajectory he's decided on going. But in this one, how many rounds do you anticipate this one going? And is the official pick going to be Damon by decision? Because Tapology is pretty bullish on Alexander Hernandez. 71% is going with him, the great ape, and majority's brown. So they think that Hernandez is going to finish our boy the Leech with strikes. Only 30% rolling with Damon the Leech, and majority decision, but there's a lot of copper for the sub as well. So what are your thoughts on Tapology, and what's the final prediction for Jackson if you're picking?
Yeah, final prediction is Jackson by KO. Hernandez, his chin has left the building. They had to reconstruct it with paper and glass. And Damon's going to throw a flying knee right up the middle and bop him. That's kind of where I'm seeing it going. Hernandez is very susceptible to being KO'd, and Damon can crack. Unlike the last few guys Alexander has fought, he can crack way harder than those Jim Miller, Bill Algio. So I think Hernandez might have a very strong first round, but if Damon can survive, I think Damon's going to gas him out, KO him, because Hernandez is a two-pump chump. He has the worst gas tank for such a specimen of a physicality of his body.
Yeah, the dude is an absolute specimen, and write it down. Meat saying that Damon Jackson by flying knee KO is potentially in the works. So if you mistake Meat that one, then I say it's time to remove tape because no blue tape needed on the dome for that one because that would be an amazing call for sure. But in this one, Meat Boy, I too am going to roll with Damon Jackson. but I'm going to take him by submission. I think that he's going to find a way to survive. Maybe he gets almost rocked, similar to how you think Trevor Peek could earlier on in the evening, but I'm taking him to weather the storm, and ultimately I like Damon the Leech Jackson to pick this one up by submission, or maybe even decision, but I like just the plus 164 straight up, taking him to win by any method, because the Leech is a tough dude, Hernandez is a tough dude, but I feel like if this is a battle of grit, that the Leech can be just slightly tougher than the Great Ape. So I'm taking Leech. I'll take him by third round finish or decision ultimately. But any last thoughts? I mean, last week I went 6-1. It was a pretty good week. You went 4-3. How do you think you'll fare this week? You're all taped up. So what do you think your record is for this week at UFC Apex?
Yeah, last week wasn't the best. The 2 weeks before, obviously, way better. But I'm feeling a little less tape this week, and I think I'm gonna go 5-1.
5-1 and perhaps less tape. We will see for sure. I'm gonna go 5-1 for myself. We'll see what the lone loss is, but nonetheless, some fun fights. Hopefully, get us that 5th straight meatlock in a row. 96th overall. Any last thoughts, me boy?
No, just smash that meat, subscribe. Thank you for watching. Turn the notification on if you guys haven't. And if you're here, throw a comment that you watched the whole video. We appreciate you, meatheads. We'll give you guys a shout out in the next video.